My guests are seated, and my guest this morning, a regular panelist and editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kubako. Also in the studio, Professor Justice Baole is head, Department of Public Administration and Health Services Management at the University of Ghana Business School. Kwame Governs Abuja is MP, ranking member, Road and Transport Committee, and he is a chartered architect. Joseph Dindiok Penka is MP and Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning.
Good to have you. So, you know, the first issue we are discussing is about history, and history is very important, isn't it? Well, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you're coming from, they say. So, let's listen to the president. He appears to have said something which some people find to be harmless, but which some people find to be very, very wrong. And some actually say he is only setting the stage to do something for his uncle or the grand uncle, Joseph Boakye Danquah, JB Danquah. So let's listen to the president.
That enabled the Ghanaian people to reject the original decision of the colonial government that a single university be established in Ibadan in Nigeria for British West Africa, and get it to agree to the establishment of a separate university for our country. How felicitous was that decision, and how greatly it has contributed to the growth of modern Ghana. It would be wholly appropriate and not at all far-fetched to describe Joseph Boakye Danquah as the founder of this university, a fact which on the 70th anniversary of its existence should be vividly recalled by all of us who are the beneficiaries of his work.
The change of the name will not change anything. Its core mandate will still be there. The degrees it awarded previously will still be valid, and the degrees that it will award subsequently will still be valid. So it won't bring any change. But the only thing is that when you are reconstructing the history, you will say that in the beginning it was called this, but at the point somebody came to power, and because of change of policy or new policies that were introduced, the name was changed.
The name was changed.
It's only the name that will be changed. And if it is changed and it is given legal backing, I don't think it will cause any harm.
At one point that we can't completely ignore, though, is the sort of lineage that these changes or the names that we're seeing seem to have with either the president himself personally or with his family. As a historian, does it give you any cause to worry?
Yeah, that he's naming some of the institutions after his family members.
And after the UGCC, which of course is a political tradition that the NPP leans towards.
The problem we have in this country is that we have been paralyzed by politics. So if anybody does anything, people interpret it from political perspective. So once the president is going to do this, definitely there will be backlash. People will be saying that to sort of project his family members. But I don't think that once it wasn't wrong for Ghanaians to name certain institutions as certain individuals, particularly the first president of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, we saw his contribution towards our attainment of independence and subsequently the development of this country. You name certain institutions after him. If other people are also named from the other side of the political divide, are also named after a certain institution, I don't see anything wrong with it. Even though people may try to criticize it, JB Danquah, he has played his role.
Right. So you heard the president say with emphasis that it is not wrong and will not be wrong to say that JB Danquah founded the University of Ghana. And then you had in that interview Professor Kwame Osei Kwarteng is a historian with the University of Cape Coast. Speaking in that interview with Gifty Ando appear on The Pulse and justifying that the president is not wrong and that even if the president had plans to change the name University of Ghana into J.B. Danquah's name, nothing will be wrong if that was done. Well, there are those who have challenged him that he's wrong. His colleague historians or other professors of history, also particularly at the University of Ghana, have challenged him and say that the president may not be accurate with his claims. So let's see how we can look at this issue this morning, because according to a professor of history and researcher at the University of Ghana, Akufo-Addo Ankara, people including Akokosa, Nene Azumante Kole, Otumfuo Osei, Ajiman Prempe, and J.B. Danquah did the job. So it was a collective thing. And they actually came in at a certain point after a lot of work had been done. Good morning to you again, once again, all of you. And I'd like to start with Mr. Bako. First of all, what do you find to fuel the protest and opposition to the comments by the president, which he did not say, I'm going to rename University of Ghana, and yet the protest is that is what he is heading to, and he must not be allowed?
Well, you know, here we are. We're dealing with two issues, maybe two in one, or two sides of the same coin. The factual. What is it that the president said that is contestable? The president virtually, made Dr. J.B. Danquah more or less the founder of the University of Ghana, Legon. That's something he said. We all heard it. That's contestable based on other records. Even those records still mention a role that J.B. Danquah played. So it is not a question of absolute exclusion of the role or contribution of Dr. J.B. Danquah. It's a question of whether what the president said amounts to an exaggeration of the role of J.B. Danquah. I've had the opportunity to make a similar statement here. If you recall, when the president made his, the 60th anniversary independence speech, and attributed certain achievements and things to Dr. J.B. Danquah. For instance, question of the genesis of Bank of Ghana, the Cocoa Marketing Board, and some other issues, and then of course the independence movement itself. And I actually indicated on this very platform that I thought the president, whilst being factual in some respects, was exaggerating the facts. And when you exaggerate the truth, the essence of the truth, it's destroyed or undermined. I would do something that might appear egoistic, but you see, there was a time, and that is when this thing I became quite alert. This is the Hansard of
The first
2nd October 1964.
64.
Yes, and what I'm going to do involves my own father and one of the most prominent, incorruptible CPP parliamentarians, one S.I. Idrusu, a fantastic gentleman. He had no fears, even though he belonged to the ruling party. He used to cause a lot of commotion in parliament, exposing corruption and wrongdoing.
1964. You said 64?
Yes, 64.
How many years after the founding of University of Ghana? University of Ghana, 1948.
Yes, but it became full-fledged university in 61.
Yes,
yeah.
1960-61.
Yeah, and Idrisu was talking about corruption in the party and the Central Committee, and was very angry on the floor of the House. And my old man got up and said, hold on. Then he said, no, what he's saying is true. Everybody knows it. Then Kofi Baku said, I should only like to say at this stage that what the member has said is an exaggeration of perhaps some truth. Idrisu said, I am happy to learn from the leader of the House that what I'm saying is true, though perhaps exaggerated. Then my father cut in and said, and the exaggeration is such that it adumbrates the whole thing. It covers the real thing inside the kernel, and so destroys everything he has said. I've never forgotten this thing. I read this thing over 20 years ago. And I
your father liked to use big English, eh?
He did. But the best man there was then Joe Appiah.
Okay.
Was the best of them all in terms of parliamentary debate. And my father told me that.
So let's go to the point now.
So the point is that, yes, JB Danquah, from all the accounts that I have read, including what is on the University of Ghana's own website and all the accounts, and this gentleman you mentioned, Kweku Dako Ankra,
yes,
I think he's a fantastic gentleman when it comes to research and historical recollection. I learned a lot from his write-ups and things. If you put all together, bottom line, I think what the president said amounted to an exaggeration. And an exaggeration that, if you are not careful, destroys that truth of a certain role played by Dr. J.B. Danquah. That's one side of the coin. I think that can easily be dealt with. The other side, it's an invitation into the realm of speculation. Does he intend to encourage the renaming of the University of Ghana so as to call it J.B. Danquah University of Ghana? That's speculative. I believe because of recent developments, the University of Mines and Technology in Danquah has been named after the great Pa Grant, who I think we haven't done much for as a nation, if we want to be honest with ourselves. And then, of course, the IPS, which was named after, yes, that's right, sorry, after the founder. And then there been some agitation for the University of Development Studies to be renamed after President Rawlings. There was an attempt earlier, I think under the Akufo administration, and was scuttled by then the chancellor also, or the chairman of the board, our own friend, Jima, Daniel Jima. So within the context of this, people tend to see a certain drift and then believe the speculation could end up being a reality. The president hasn't said he's going to rename the University of Ghana as J.B. Danquah University of Ghana. He hasn't said that. So if we want to interrogate that, then we may be doing a purely speculative analysis.
Okay.
So for me, I won't waste too much intellectual energy on that aspect.
Yes.
The other aspect, contestable, and can be discussed in the dispassionate
So like you say, I'd like you to hold on. We'll return to you and you tell us what you know as much as the history goes, that you say that on this occasion too, the president attempted to exaggerate, unlike what your dad would say, adumbrate the facts, as in hide, just not deal with the details and hide them.
But that's straightforward. I need not come back. It's a very simple thing. I've read. And
the founding history.
Yes. Yes.
What have you learned from Professor Dako, for example, that is contrary to what Nana Akufo-Addo is talking about?
Dako's team captures the element that President Akufo-Addo put out minus the exaggeration.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. Okay, but we all know the story about the Asquith Commission that eventually led to the Elliott Commission. And then the dispute between the majority and minority reports. Right. Indeed, the majority report talked about the need for two universities, one in Gold Coast and the other in Ibadan. Is the minority report that went for just a sole university for all the West African
situated in Nigeria.
And it's true. There were instances where Danquah and others protested, but Dako is right. There were earlier citizens of this land, of high profile, who made similar submissions. Bottom line, at the end of the day, the funding and all that, as he indicated, came from our farmers, especially the cocoa farmers. I mean, the story is more in favor of what Danquah is saying than the exaggerated element in the president's submission. It's as simple as that.
All right. So let me just bring you a brief of what, because that's also central, a brief of what Professor Danquah Ankra of the University of Ghana, who is a historian and a researcher, had to say to Kujakoto Boateng of CTFM. And he said that, quote, the Gold Coast intelligentsia, the Gold Coast elites, as well as the farmers, the ordinary people, it is their money that established University of Ghana, especially the cocoa farmers. And they need to be congratulated. But when we talk about individual efforts, first and foremost, we need to put historical chronology and see who the primus inter pares is in all these debates. You will realize that many people made arguments. The arguments they made from 1861. So that's a long way before J.B. Danquah's and his group intervention. 1861 up to the 1940s. These people wrote it down. The colonial government did not budge. But in 1943, they formed the Elliott Commission. And it is the Elliott Commission that then, led the various processes to what we see today. And he says, persons such as Akokosa, Nene Azumante Kole, Otumfuo Se Osei Ajiman Prempe, and J.B. Danquah definitely did a good job. Mr. Boja, what do you say? People say the president's consistency since he became president in speaking to history that elevates J.B. Danquah gives them cause for worry that what is being speculated is true, that he's sowing the seed, preparing the minds of the people for that eventual thing. And that even elevated beyond naming a university after his uncle or his grand-uncle, that the debate about the founding of Ghana, you remember, as the NDC tradition and the CPP tradition and also the NPP disagree on all of these matters, clearly suggests that the president has a motive.
Well, good morning to your cherished viewers, and it's my first time on the show, so I want to take the opportunity to thank the multimedia group for giving me the opportunity to share this platform.
You're welcome, sir.
I think there's history to this. I quite told the line of Kweku on this. There's no doubt about the historical fact as to how the University of Ghana was or came to be as our premier university. I think the history is quite clear. However, there's this trend that can be seen, if you want to see it, in the posture of the president since he became our president in January 2017. He jumped into the argument as to even how Ghana was founded. And you know the reactions to that. It's as if the president is determined to claim an unclaimed territory of his family history, as if there was an injustice done to his family in the past, that now that he's become the president, it is his duty to reclaim that territory for his family. I must say, I read a bit of what Honorable Ablakwa said in titled The True Documented Authoritative History of University of Ghana, which he also culled from a history book he talked about. And to dovetail into what Kweku said, this, as you even said, this journey didn't start even in the life of, it started probably before Dr. J.B. Danquah was born in the 1800s. These discussions were going on, and like you said, documented. It is quite difficult for anyone to understand. If you read what the book commissioned by the former Vice Chancellor, Professor George Bene, in anticipation of the the anniversary, one of the anniversaries of the university. And a section of that talked about how Professor Agbodeka recounted Dr. J.B. Danquah's contribution towards the funding. He didn't say funded. We know, I mean, we sitting around this table are aware of how some universities were founded, at least within our lifetime. You need to have the commitment, you need to do some legislation, you need to do some funding, and you need to actually build it. If Dr. J.B. Danquah was mentioned as people who contributed towards funding, and in this case, we have already been told the real money came from cocoa farmers. So it's not like he donated money. As a member of parliament or as a top politician, he probably persuaded, as one of those people who persuaded farmers to agree that cocoa money should be used. But at the end of the day, the debate as to how it got actually built and where it was built took a lot of people. I've read a text that suggested that even the first time it was mentioned in parliament, he was the third or so to speak on the matter. So he didn't even introduce the discussion in parliament. So it is quite difficult to understand what the president wanted to achieve. But those who wanted to say, or who want to say, and I'm part of those, that the president is setting the pace. What the clip you played, you heard him say that during the 70th anniversary, he's proposing something, that it would be right for something to take place. He didn't actually define what should take place. And he's already taken the step. And this step includes renaming of UPSA. I have no doubt about that. I mean, somebody founded UPSA and then government absorbed it or whatever it is. I think it's appropriate.
That has been explained. He didn't rename UPSA.
Exactly, because it started before 2000. I mean, long before. The thing was that he just completed. The WA Technical University to be named after Dr. Liman. I don't see much, though probably Dr. Liman didn't, it's no more here with us, but he was, I mean, was our president. UMAT being named after George Pargrand, like he said, those were people who you can trace to certain things significant in this country. You will notice that even naming WA Technical University may not be because Dr. Liman actually did anything about it. Maybe, I don't know, but maybe the history of how it became a technical school before Polytechnic, maybe he played a role. So let us be careful here. Indeed, somebody will say the president didn't say it, but the telltale signs are there. The man attempted even to rewrite the history of this country, which was heavily shut down by the people who keep a record of history in this country. He's attempting it on University of Ghana. I say the president's attempt to even double in this argument is completely needless. University of Ghana requires more attention in other areas, including infrastructure and many, many things than what's the name of it. The name of University of Ghana currently, it's okay. Let's do what we can do to make it even better. The name change is completely a needless argument, and I don't think it's worth. But I am one of those people who would also say that the president shouldn't dare. We don't need it. University of Ghana needs help, not name change.
You see, I had referred to something earlier. If you go to the University of Ghana website, and I'm right there, if you go to the portion on the establishment of the university, they speak about the genesis, and they don't mention any other but J.B. Danquah.
That's what is there.
So why are we hurt by what the president has said, but not what the university itself had done even before the president became president? There is this portion of it. They refer to the Elliott Commission that published the majority report, which recommended the establishment of university colleges in the Gold Coast, that is Ghana and Nigeria, and a minority report which held that only one university college for the whole of British West Africa was feasible. The British government at first accepted the minority report of the Elliott Commission and decided that a university college for the whole of West Africa should be established in Ibadan in Nigeria. But the people of the Gold Coast could not accept this recommendation. Led by the scholar and politician, the late Dr. J.B. Danquah, they argued, or they urged, the Gold Coast government to inform the British government that the Gold Coast could support a university college. The British government accordingly reviewed its decision and agreed to the establishment of the University College of the Gold Coast. Why are we not worried about this?
That was exaggeration and exclusion.
This was also an exaggeration
and exclusion. That's what it was. We tell our history sometimes in a very unilateral way. We don't tell the full story. Sometimes when the issues come up, then we are all able to go and gather all the things and put together. I think that here...
So the University of Ghana itself has been wrong.
To exaggeration and exclusion.
Exaggeration and exclusion.
Well, just to take... my good friend here does represent the Attorney General sometimes when we're doing some bills. When you say he led, nobody tells us what is the meaning, the definition of he led. So does that mean that Honorable Kwenka, representing the Attorney General, to lead government to to deal with a bill in Parliament, so he's the one who led the bill?
For example, you refer to him being the second or third to speak to the matter when it came up in Parliament.
Yes.
Now, when you read, the suggestion is that when he got up, they were talking about the minority report?
Yes, yes.
Then when he got up, he spoke about the majority report, recommending one in Nigeria and one in Ghana, which ought to be pursued, rather than the minority report recommending for one only for the British West Africa to be situated in Nigeria.
That's true.
So the case.
So his intervention was
critical, was good.
Yes, we accept that. So does that mean that in Parliament, if I make a critical intervention on a bill, I become that bill can be attributed to me? No, the thing is,
the persuasiveness.
You said it's about
in parliamentary debate. The persuasiveness of your advocacy.
Yes, how did you
could have an effect?
The University of Ghana come to be? And you said the process started since the 1800s. It is not possible to make in fact, like Kweku said, the history is quite clear. There were many people, chiefs. In fact, do you know the single comment by Asante that time to fight over this could have stopped it? Because at the time, much of the cocoa production was within his territory. He could have said that when the money is coming from here, come and build it here. He could have scattered the whole thing. So the number of people who actually founded University of Ghana, I believe in the fact that if it's about money, it's cocoa farmers' money. If it's about the debate, it's about the debate that was started by the people of Ghana. In fact, I even got to, my views reinforce that University of Ghana is the best name to have this. In any case, how is any name bigger than Ghana? If you say KNUST, change to Kwame Nkrumah University, it's just say USC, change to Kwame Nkrumah University, Technical University. But to remove Ghana and put somebody's name, it's as if you are saying the person is bigger.
But as Kweku said, that is the speculative point that we are on, because we do not know for a fact. There have not been any statements made to the effect that the president wants the University of Ghana to be renamed.
What was he talking about on the 70th anniversary? What was he talking about when he says on the 70th anniversary? What was it going to be?
Okay, all right. Thank you, Prof. What do you think about all of this debate, and now getting to realize that from what the historians, some other historians, even within the University of Ghana itself, are saying, what the University of Ghana has on its own website is, an exaggeration, and Kweku says exclusion. It's not inclusive of all the persons and their contribution.
Thank you very much. If I have your permission, let me wish my son, my firstborn, Joshua, is 15 years today.
Okay.
So great. Joshua, happy birthday. I
right.
pray for you to become who the Lord has destined you to be, and to be the head of this family.
Happy birthday, Joshua.
Yes. Let me put on record that I don't speak for the university on this issue, because I don't have the authority to speak on. But I belong to a number of very important committees and boards in the university, and this issue of naming or renaming hasn't come up anywhere in our discussions. And so I want to say that within the university community, we are also just following the discussions, just as the president said it, and just as the media keeps reporting. let me correct the issue about the fact that the university's website is perhaps exaggerating and excluding some other people. You see that this is a website. You need very succinct information to put there. It will be difficult to do a very thorough reportage of what the history of the university is on this website. You want to give your visitors to your website a sense of what the university's history is like. And I think that the way this story is crafted on the university website is very apt. It is not wrong, especially where the writers of this piece carefully put there that this was a Ghana movement, as a certain group of people, but led by somebody. And I think that that recognition is important. It is important also to trace that together with the president's speeches. If you notice, since he became president, every major speech he has made, he had tried to recognize a group of people who have played some role in some way. Sometimes it's difficult to appreciate why, in this case, it was just his uncle that he went on to acknowledge, rather than do what he has been doing all the time, to give us a chronology of names, a sequence of names of people. If you notice one of the, I don't know whether it was his inaugural speech, where he went on and listed so many people. Yes. So I as an academic, that's the context within which I analyzed this particular speech, to say that the president had a certain way of speaking when he has to acknowledge. And he does that by acknowledging a lot of people he considers as having made some significant contribution. And so this is...
So your expectation is that, or was that, he should have mentioned persons like Akokosa, Nene Azuma, Tekole, Otunfo, Prempe, and his uncle.
Absolutely. So that will follow his pattern of speeches.
That vindicates the exclusion.
Yes.
Yes. So to say that, to just limit it to his uncle, of course, will fuel all of this. There's a very important point about Asantehene at the time, which when I read the stories, I found very important, because I guess there was also a bid to get the university established in Kumasi. And there was a very important delegation to try and convince him not to pitch that idea forth, because if he did, then it would mean that the Gold Coast was pitching for 2 universities, and that would defeat the purpose for being able to get a university. And therefore, he was kind of like persuaded to shelve that idea. And that made this singular decision to have the University of the Gold Coast, or University of Ghana then, a very important step, and which perhaps may have been the reason why we succeeded. So I like us to look at it within that context, the context that many people played a role, but I don't think that the university's website is misleading. It's not misleading. It is important. I mean, again, to go from my big brother Akufo-Addo.
You have just faulted the president. You have just faulted the president for not mentioning the list,
but you didn't do
and
it
only singling out his relation. And you say the university hasn't done any wrong.
No. You see, why I say the university hasn't done any wrong is based on, one, the fact that I'm sure if you, I didn't take the pain to do, but if you take a critical look at the university's own writing of its history in the annals of the University of Ghana, you would find the acknowledgement of all the people, in my view, who have contributed.
The university's own writing of the history of its founding, which was a job that the university commissioned, you know,
1995.
Commissioned in 1995, does not single out J.B. Danquah for praise. So why does it do that? Why does it do that?
No, so that's why I said that this is a website where you need to be able to abridge some piece of information to have it there. So if the university in its own writing did not single out J.B. Danquah, you will not be able to fault the university in this case when it says, for example, that this struggle or this initiative was led by this person. That alone tells us that there are some people who contributed. And if you want to go as we do, if you want to then excavate what the entire story is, then you should be able to find. And as you just acknowledge,
do you believe, or you don't subscribe to the history as is being recounted to us, starting from the 1800s?
Yeah, so
of the university's founding. Don't you even find it curious that eventually in 1961, when it became the University College, okay? When it became the University College, the University of Ghana, then you had not only the first president as a chancellor, but Nana Kobina Nketia IV, Omanhene of Akufo-Addo, was the interim vice chancellor. Does it not tell you something about the processes leading to the founding?
It did. In fact, so my point this morning has been that the university itself writes its story in the way that is unequivocal. It recognizes, and perhaps even if within the university's own documentation of its history, there are some omissions, if it were, you would find within, just like one of our colleagues came out strongly to elaborate on what the processes were, you would find our own institution, people within the institution challenging that history and making sure that the history is brought up to speed. The point that I'm making is that this short story on the website of the university is not misrepresenting the history of the university or how the university was established. It is for want of space, it is for want of brevity and perhaps succinctness that the university decides to say that there was a struggle. That struggle was led by somebody. Of course, if that's what I said, and your point actually supports the point that if you were to go into the history, you will see that this history was written very clearly, and there are many people who were named in there. And I just told you the story of one of the people who I thought whose intervention was critical to the success of the struggle for the establishment of the university. So I don't think this is a misrepresentation. And I don't think that is exclusive. If we were to find in the records itself, the history books of the University of Ghana, that it is represented the way it's represented in this website, then you will say, oh, then the university also made a mistake. And I think that that's why I go back to the president's initial, my initial comment on the president's style has been that all the time he acknowledges all the people. After all, the president was not in want of space, if you like, in terms of recognizing, because in the past we have seen that he had given recognition to all the people he thinks should be recognized. Of course, in those on those platforms, some people would have been left off and people would have complained. But the truth is that the university is not misrepresenting its history. Okay. For me, the story about whether or not the University of Ghana will be named or will not be named, this is my personal position. I think that the University of Ghana, as it stands, it's okay. I don't think we need to rename the University of Ghana.
So if it came up, you will oppose it?
Yes, I will.
Look, okay. Now let's hear from the Deputy Attorney General.
It's misleading. This is what you want the world to know about how the university was founded. You are the one. The University of Ghana is the one misleading the world. Change your website to reflect the reality. There's no shortage of space. If you want to tell the world that a number of people contributed, you can put that in a sentence without actually singling out Dr. JB Danquah.
The university's website says he led.
Yes.
Okay. Kweku says this is exaggeration, this is exclusion.
No, my exaggeration was relative to the point of him being the founder.
Him being the founder, right. That's to the president, right. And that's to the president.
If I may just ask one minute.
So I'm asking, does anyone know how he did the leading, which we understand from the history started from his contribution in Parliament?
Yes.
When a part of the report was what was being projected by the British government, and he stood for a different side of the report. Do we know if he, for example, convinced the Asante Hineden, convinced Sakokosa, and the rest of them, you know, Nene Azumantekoli, to join his kind of protestation? Do we know that?
Just before I answer that, let me say that it's so sad that this story about renaming took the shine away from why the president was actually on the university campus.
Sure.
And for me, that's a very, very important point. That's that the University of Ghana, after almost 70 years, decides to set up an endowment fund based on the vision of the current vice chancellor. And the president was there to inaugurate this. And all of the discussions have now been overshadowed by naming or renaming or JB or not JB. And that is really painful. But so I think that at some point, if it's possible for us to just give a little comment on what the university is seeking to do which brought the president there.
Sure.
But that point about whether or not there's I got a colleague send me an extract of a book. I guess this is the book that talks about the history of the university. Where in
Francis
some portions,
Agbodeke's book.
yes, where
it's actually, do we say it's a book? Because he was commissioned to do it by the University of Ghana. And it is a history of University of Ghana, half a century of higher education, 1948 to 1998.
Good.
Yes.
In some extract of it says
which page are you?
This is page 13.
Page 13, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Page 13, somewhere there says, the idea was to levy cocoa farmers to accumulate funds for building the university college. 2 members of the Legislative Council, Dr. J.B. Danquah and Professor Christian Baita, on their own volition, worked on this question of securing funds for the, let me do it this way, securing funds for the project. Danquah, for instance, was seen educating farmers around the country on the issue so that they might willingly contribute to the project. With this background and work done, it was possible for the Cocoa Marketing Board to levy and collect monies and blah, blah, blah. You know, the total that's collected amounted to approximately 897,000 pounds. You know, so this is some recognition of the role that he did.
Right.
Aside the discussions in Parliament, but the truth is that he was not the only person. There were other people that played.
Thank
some
you very
roles.
much.
Yes.
Let's hear from the Deputy Attorney General. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Is there some plan in the offing that we don't know about? Because there's a certain consistency, and people can read into it that this is what is being. It's a seed being sown.
Samson,
to get to that
as far as I know you, as far as I know you will not be invited, and you will not accept the invitation to that world of speculation. Yeah. I'm very certain, beyond a shred of doubt, that you will not allow yourself to be invited to the world of speculation. You see, I have listened carefully to my brother and the other speakers, and it appears to me, basically, and I was very intrigued by an intervention made by Prof a short while ago, that it appears to me that His Excellency the President went to the University of Ghana and made one linguistic construction to the effect that J.B. Danquah founded Legon and took his car and left. The whole of what happened on that day, that's appeared to me that this is what we have reduced it to. Meanwhile, that's just a part of a long speech he delivered. Then we've chosen just a sentence, we are harping on it, and it has killed all the good intentions and whatever he said in that speech. We've selected just a sentence, and we've gone to hang, virtually hang the president.
It's a complete sentence, sir.
That's correct, but I'm saying that it was said in the midst of a lot of other things that he said. And we found nothing good to discuss about all the things he said.
A sentence is capable of standing on its own.
I
A
agree.
sentence stands on its own.
I agree.
Yes.
But I'm saying that you don't take that out and water down the effect of the entire speech that was delivered on the same day.
Tell us the rest of it that connects to this.
First of all, if you listen to everybody here in the studio and outside of this studio, there's one thing that is obvious, that nobody disputes the fact that J.B. Danquah contributed enormously to the founding of the University of Ghana, Legon. Nobody. And if you read the history, again, even the historians, after His Excellency the President delivered this speech, all those who have spoken, none, and I repeat that, none has been able to say that J.B. Danquah played no role in the founding of the University of Ghana. None.
They're only putting it in perspective.
There is unanimity.
Even to point out the fact that he only showed up at a certain point when things had gotten advanced. And speaking in Parliament, again, was not binding on the governor. The governor had a veto. It is the reason when there was a majority and minority report, the governor could make a decision and say that it is the minority report we want to use.
The governor had the power to veto. Let me take it from that and then elaborate on what I want to say. If the governor had the power to veto, of course, it's like Parliament. You make all the arguments. In the end, what persuades the majority carries the day. And of course, it means that whatever he said persuaded the majority. All right? So we cannot take that out. Again, let me go back to the website of the university. The University of Ghana has a Department of History. a whole department of history. Something you know, myself and you were very near that place. It was a dreaded area those days. You know, a whole department of history exists there. Then that particular university puts out something on the website that my brother now finds unconscionable and all that. There must have been a reason why they came to those definite conclusions that they have on the website. There must have been a reason. And as you stated rightly, in Parliament, whatever he said had persuasive authority. It may not have been binding, but in the end, it won the day. And we had that university established. Again, if we don't take care, we will misconstrue or misunderstand the concept of founding. All of us. And I think that we have to be very careful the way we look at it, because I was looking at it last night. I was just thinking about it, and I realized that most of us, if we don't take care, will run into some contradictions based on what we have said in the past in similar circumstances that have arisen in this country.
Okay.
And so I'm saying, if I hit it now, you will understand what I'm talking about.
Please go ahead. We cannot say Kwame Nkrumah founded Ghana because there were others. And so if the president says J.B. Danquah founded the university because there were others even before him, and when he also came
One small point.
Yes.
Is there any portion of the president's speech that said that the founding was exclusively to J.B. Danquah and that nobody contributed anything at all?
Let me repeat just a bit of what he said.
This is what he said. Portion of the speech
Let me repeat just a bit of what he said. Just a bit of what he said. He said, it will be wholly appropriate and not at all far-fetched to describe Joseph Boachi Danquah as the founder of this university, unquote.
Yes, he said, not far-fetched.
Wholly appropriate.
And not what? Far-fetched.
Yes.
Wholly appropriate. Yes, and not far-fetched. Look at the linguistic construction there.
Describe him as the founder.
It gives
That's the
room.
emphasis.
Of course, it gives room that in the end, there may have been other contributors.
All right.
But his name stands out. And that is why I'm saying that from all the historical accounts that have been given, no doubt, he stands out. And you see, when there's a struggle, Samson, in the end, history will always mention hundreds, but one person will stand out. And in this particular case, there's no debate about the fact that the man stands out.
That's the debate. You said there's no debate. And
yes, I think there's no debate about the fact that he stands out. Because from even our own discussion in the studio, and from what we have all read, and from what historians have said, I have asked that question at the very beginning when I was making my submission, whether or not there is any person who has been able to speak to the historical events leading to the founding of University of Ghana who has said that J.B. Danquah played no role. Nobody. I have said that. And my very good brother, Agboja, hasn't said so. In fact, he hasn't made any effort to say so. Again, Uncle Kweku Baku stated that it was an exaggeration, and he went into the history books to once again teach us, which is what he's very
exactly.
Couldn't I be teaching you? No, don't you worry at all. It's my opinion, and I am entitled to it.
And that is not an exaggeration.
You know, what do you exaggerate? You can only exaggerate an existing state of facts.
Yeah, you exaggerate the truth.
Yes. If it doesn't exist, you cannot exaggerate. It's only when it exists that you can exaggerate it to look bigger than it is or smaller than it's supposed to be in all these circumstances. But that debate, something that you have talked about that he made in Parliament, and you have read a lot of his philosophical underpinnings, even in law, as far as Ria Kuto and other things are concerned. He was a scholar par excellence.
That's not a dispute.
Yes, if you look at the history of Ghana, it appears to me that over the years, we have not celebrated him enough. That's my candid opinion. We haven't celebrated him enough. But the invitation by my good brother as to the renaming of the university, after that, I think it's an invitation that I will decline.
But you're saying there are no plans whatsoever to try to rename the university.
I cannot tell you that on authority.
Because people are reading into the consistency of the references to J.B. Danquah. Even by the finance minister when he's reading the budget, he has J.B. Danquah in there.
But I have said that those ones that they have said, are they factual? Whatever finance minister has said, and whatever His Excellency has said in respect of J.B. Danquah and others, in terms of our historical antecedents and etc., are they factual?
No, they are not factual. That is
you
why
have accepted that they are facts, but they have been exaggerated. That's what some of you are saying.
Is surprised that you cannot say emphatically that there's no such plan to rename the university.
You see, let me tell you something, my brother. We are running an executive system of government. And the authority of the executive system of government in Ghana by our constitution vests in the president.
That's right.
Right? So I cannot come and make conclusive determinations as to what His Excellency the President thinks. I cannot. But what I can say without a shred of doubt is that what His Excellency the President said does not amount to renaming the university or an intent to rename it.
You will not be surprised if any such plan was unveiled.
I will not be. If it is unveiled, I will not be. Because the fact of the matter is that, as I indicated, it's an executive presidency. And if His Excellency the President comes to a certain conclusive determination about a particular matter, he will put it out there. There may be a debate.
Will you support it?
To some extent, why not?
Despite the
plethora of
like we say, groundswell of opinion against it.
You see,
except for the majority in the party.
Can you name Legon Farmers University of Ghana?
There's a hall, my hall, a Akufo hall, dedicated to the farmers.
I know. That's my hall as well.
Right,
I was there with you.
I know.
Can you name it Farmers University of Ghana? You see, sometimes let's look at the contributions, because if you're talking about farmers, it wasn't one farmer. There were thousands of them.
That's why they call it a Akufo hall.
Yes, I agree with that. So what we should be looking at is to look at the substance of the man's contribution to the founding of the university and discuss it within those remits. But as for the issue of exaggerations, as talked about and etc., you can only exaggerate what exists. If it doesn't exist, you cannot exaggerate.
If it should be renamed, should it be named after the contributors, those who contributed money to build it, or the one, as you say, who advocated it?
Let me again put this.
Who deserves the better place?
Let me put this in perspective. It is when a policy is put in place that is implemented. If there's no policy, you don't implement anything. I've answered your question.
If you read this,
quickly, couple of minutes from quickly. You and Kweku.
In that
unless
book,
Prof. wants to say something.
In that book by Professor Agbodeke, it recounts that J.B. Danquah played an important fundraising role. But even that, in that capacity, his other colleague from the Legislative Council, Professor Christian G. Baita, played an equally prominent fundraising role. The debate as to the array of people who contributed. So if J.B. Danquah's contribution should be a bit of contribution on the floor and fundraising, didn't we get other people making similar persuasive moves? Why singling out Dr. J.B. Danquah? I say University of Ghana can help us change the rendition of what you call the history of University of Ghana on your website. Okay. It is also misleading.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, you know, the president really is not alone in this exaggeration that I've alluded to. Over the years, and that's what is reflected even on the website of the university itself. And if you go through our Hansards in the Fourth Republic, especially the last 10 or so years, every 4th February, tribute is paid to the memory of Dr. Danquah, and it's deserving, to be honest with you, in spite of my ideological differences with his tradition. It's deserving. And if you go through the Hansard, you will see similar or same exaggerated account. And nobody in Parliament has ever disputed that. It's gone on and on and on and on, and that's why we are where we are. Perhaps the lesson now is to reflect when it comes to these things, to be precise and exact. You see, precision and exactitude helps in recounting our history. But I just realized that in the 2016 tribute to Dr. Danquah, this is 4th February 2016, and I think it was Mr. J.B. Is it Edu?
Yeah, Danquah Edu.
Danquah Edu, who unfortunately
it's a relative.
Gone. Right. Yes, but this is what he went for, the Hansard of July 24th, 1946, to show some of what Dr. Danquah said. He says, I'm quoting, The Gold Coast is not Nigeria and never could be. Achimota is not Yaba or Ibadan and never could be. Say, for purely cultural reasons, I conceive that the Gold Coast, a proud little country with a good reason for being proud, will never and shall never be proud of a university situated in Ibadan and not Achimota. And for this reason alone, this superlative cultural reason, I support the motion for a committee to be set up, Your Excellency, to look carefully into dispatch number 169 and make recommendations to suit our Gold Coast tradition, our Chumata tradition. He was speaking in support of the need. Motion. Yes, of a motion. Yes. And indeed, a committee was indeed set up, and he was a member of the committee. Yeah. And their work led to the setting up of the university on August 1st, 1948. Played the role? Absolute, incontestable. Exclusive role, peculiar to himself, related to founding, disputable, contestable.
Okay, yes,
Prof. Please, let me take advantage of this opportunity to talk about why the president was on campus. Just give me one minute. I will do that in 1 minute. It's very important. The University of Ghana has been accused in many instances that we are not generating enough revenue to support the kind of mandate we have. And I know that the current government is putting together a national research fund. On our own, we have decided, led by our Vice Chancellor, Professor Odro, to establish an endowment fund, which has been the thing that most of the colleges and schools have done. My school, the business school, has an endowment fund. My college, the College of Humanity, led by Professor Ajay Mensah, has an endowment fund. Now the university puts together this huge endowment fund, $100 million endowment fund. And the president was there to inaugurate this. And for me, this is really, really something we should be talking about. Something that fits into the national agenda of establishing a research fund, and something that would give the university a certain level of freedom in terms of being able to push its academic programs and research. And I think that the president's being there for me was a very good thing to give this idea visibility. And I should commend my Vice Chancellor and the leaders of the university for taking this initiative. Okay. One thing we want to say is to employ corporate Ghana and all other well-meaning people who support university education and research to come to our aid for us to raise $100 million in 5 years, $100 million in 5 years, and that will push the University of Ghana to do things that Ghana wants us to.
So that you'll not be in the state that you are currently in. That we understand.
We are not in any bad state. We will deal with ourselves. We will manage
borrowing to pay salaries.
We have capacity to manage ourselves.
Right. Thank you very much. I've got some of your comments that you have sent in here. I'll go through some of them quickly, and then we take a break. When we return, we would go to the country's only, state-owned cylinder manufacturing company and the problems that are there, allegations of wrongdoing by the head of that entity, and also the tension there that has led to decisions being taken by the board, and then you have the umbrella entity overturning that decision somewhat. And then we should also go to the MMT. Looks like there are questions of rot happening in too many places. Benjamin Osei Jamra in Edinburgh says that, are we serious at all as a country? I want somebody to refer me to any document or statement purporting to have said that University of Ghana is going to be renamed JB Danquah University. We waste our time discussing petty issues as a country. And refuse to talk about bread and butter issues. Our political space is becoming too noisy for a meaningful development. Spike in Cincinnati says that there is nowhere in the president's speech did he mention any change of name. The Spain doctors should give us a break. Efo Newton in Mankraso says it's very unfortunate and suicidal for someone to even think that JB Danquah founded the University of Ghana. if not for parochial political interest. The president must take his renaming brigade away from the country's premier university. Ghana deserves better. Benjamin Osei, okay, I've read one message for you, so we can end it there. Richard Nyama says that I'm surprised that Akufo-Addo and the NDC have previously argued that the Kwame Nkrumah founded Ghana despite the role played by all other people, and yet when it comes to University of Ghana, they cannot accept that J.B. Danquah played the lead role by leading the minority position to be accepted by the British government. It smacks of double standards.
Does he want me to respond?
You mentioned our name, so
because my position is very clear.
Inviting you to.
Okay. Kofi Bento says that, note that the university acknowledges its main contributors, but not the main leader, J.B. Danquah. There is a Kwafo Hall for the founders, Saba Hall for Mensa Saba, Legon Hall for the landowners, Volta to mention the Lake, and Commonwealth to honor the UK. I think JB was being reserved for special honor. Here it is. Really? Okay. So JB there, not a hall. It should go for the whole university. All right, so let's see how it goes. So that's Kofi Bento. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll get to talk about the scandals in the cylinder manufacturing company and also at the MMT. We'll be right back.